All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Wednesday, September 30th, if you can even believe it, 2015. And this is Before the First Cup with Jules here on UCY.TV. Happy Wednesday. We made it halfway. It's been a long week for me already, as it is every week. It is a soggy 54 degrees and very dark and cloudy here in upstate New York. Honestly, I opened up my eyes this morning and I thought it was just dawn, and I looked at the clock and it was 9. It's that dark and soggy here. We are just starting to come out of the clouds that have been over us for the last 2.5 days, and we got socked pretty good. Freezing cold and wet. So what more can you ask for? All the trees are changing, and tomorrow is October 1st, if you can even believe it. Where did 2015 go? So let's see. What do we talk about next? Before we get to today's show, I wanted to give a little bit of a rundown of some of the stuff we've been playing with. We've had 3 or 4 big projects that we've been working on in the back end in spare odd hours when there's nothing else to do, which you know how that is. And finally, after all this time, there have been some mega breakthroughs. I am looking at 3 different large projects that we had movements forward over the last few days. One of those happens to be kicking off the live video with the shows again. And Levon and I did some testing. Anyone that was around yesterday saw this. But we managed to crack the last nut that we had to crack. And Levon managed to get on live. So I've created a live page on UCY's website. And I think I even embedded the live embed on the chat page on UCY's website. She is going to go live on Friday and do her show via simulcast with broadcasting over the air, as well as broadcasting audio and video over the YouTube live stream. So we'll see how that works. But I just want to give a kudos because it was a lot of work, and Levon stuck in there with me, and I know she's wanted to do it for quite a number of years now. When she first started on UCY, she had asked me about doing it, and I promised her, I'm like, don't worry about it. Yeah, we're working on it. So we finally got there exactly the way I wanted to do it. Paul built us a nice little control panel, and everything works great. I'm telling you, I was so happy yesterday, you don't even know. So a little bit of extra dopamine. I'm one of those action-oriented people who like to check tasks off my list, and if I don't have tasks that check off my list, I start to get depressed. So it's been a long time. It's been a long time, and that list has been long. Okay, so keep an eye out for that. We have some other good stuff coming, but those are all surprises. Where do we leave off on Monday? Because, yes, Monday was the last time I did a show. I apologize about that. That's the first time I ever did that. And the show was titled Frankenvirus, Immortality, Climate Change, and I think it was Extinction was the last one. Yeah, they got me 3 thumbs down, guys. Like, that's a first for me as well. And I love to see how that happens. Like, in one morning, we manage, in 3 shows that are clumped together, we managed to get 10 thumbs down, but no additional views. You gotta love how that happens. So either there's a thumbs down maker or somebody was just out there having fun because they like how mean that little thumbs down button looks. We had discussed a whole bunch of things in that show. It was more of a general overview of all the crazies. So I don't know if there was really one general topic except climate change. Everything was coming back to climate change. Was national security, climate change was going to cause the death of everybody, kill the cows, you know, all this other stuff. Thaw out the Frankenviruses, and there wasn't one, there was 2 that the Russians had pulled out of Siberia. And that one insane scientist who actually injected it into himself because he said it had to have the key of everlasting life. 3.5 million year bacteria he injected into himself. He's like, I feel great. That was pretty much insanity. So I don't know. There's nothing from there that we're going to jump on today. So we're just going to continue with today's Insanity, and it's Wednesday. All right. I had a whole bunch of stuff queued up, and I'm sure there's lots more if I spent the time to scroll back a couple days. I know that I post a lot, and I don't get to all of it, so I expect you to do your homework. It always helps. If you go hit the, and SLC Mike knows this, if you go to ucy.tv/news, that should take you to all my main feeds, and there are more. If I get a chance, I'll try and get that up there. But at least for now, that is the best I can do. U.S. defense scientists have invented a brain implant that, boosts memory. Now, like we talked about with the nanotechnology, and I said in the very beginning, I'm like, look out, because they're going to tell you they got a cure for cancer, and that's how they're going to get you to line up for the new nano vaccine. Well, yeah, this brain implant DARPA's been working on for quite a long time. Initially, it was in regards to PTSD soldiers coming back. Of course, they wanted to find a way to erase and replace traumatic memories. And then we found out they were also working on some sort of super soldier experiments where they are able to push a button and release chemicals on demand into the soldiers' brains. And I'm not talking like chemicals, like deadly chemicals, though they could be. I'm talking like dopamine or adrenaline or something that would prompt the soldier's body to go into action. And we've seen videos and read studies that they've been doing already on rats with that stuff. I had this one video at one point where it looks so horrible. They had this little circuit board attached to the top of this rat's open skull, and at the touch of a button, they could change the rat's behavior. But what they were actually doing was changing what chemicals were flowing through the rat's brain, and then those, and we all know our body is electrochemical. So, you change the makeup and what's flowing in the brain, you're going to have a different outcome. Anyway, so let's read this. It says, where do we sign up? Just sign it with an X here, sir. The more forgetful among us, and those would be the ones, remember we've discussed how spending a lot of time on your electronic device, namely your cell phone, and letting the internet do your remembering for you, leads us to lose our capability to remember things. So, hey, don't worry about it. We got a brain implant that'll fix that. It says the more forgetful among us might soon have access to brain implants that can help jog our memories if the new technology developed by the U.S. Defense Force becomes more widely adopted. New electric array brain implants are reportedly showing promise in assisting people who are trying to dig up memories from the farthest reaches of their mind. Now, wow, that first paragraph just gave me chills down my spine because I started seeing flashes. Floop, floop, floop. Digging up memories from the farthest reaches of your mind. Can you see in a deep, dark, underground parking garage with no cars around, a chair, somebody duct taped to that chair with blow torches and needle nose pliers? And hey, they don't have to do that anymore. All we got to do is put in one of these brain implants and we could have access to memories from the farthest reaches of your mind. And that's a horrifying thought. Think about Brazil. What was his name? Bruce Willis in Brazil. He was the mental patient, right? And they wanted to get into what he saw when he went up top and saw the post-apocalyptic world. I'm telling you, they will be able at some point to fully do what they've been leading toward, and it looks like in everything that we've read is this thought crime and precognition, Minority Report type stuff, and it's definitely coming. One of the other things I thought about is with this epidemic of quote-unquote Alzheimer's, which who even knows what it is now, like we talked about the other day, there are signs pointing to the fact that it may be very similar, if not possibly something that could even be the same under a new name. Who knows? But we know it's the same sort of illness where we have malformed proteins in the brain that are causing Alzheimer's disease, just like the mad cow, the scrapie, the bovine spongiform encephalopathy, the CVJD, for I can never say it. Creutzfeldt-Jacobs disease, the brain-wasting diseases that seem to be becoming epidemic. They do say that they think that they have some cures using ultrasound and things of that nature, but hey, for all you people who are having trouble remembering stuff, let's just get a brain implant. All right, let's read a little bit more anyway. I'm postulating. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, our buddies over at DARPA team, is primarily concerned with assisting those who have suffered traumatic brain injuries rather than people who tend to leave the house without picking up their house keys. But the process could be applied across the board. There you go. Everyone has the experience of struggling to remember long lists of items or complicated directions to get somewhere, explains program manager Justin Sanchez, who apparently never owned a GPS, in a press release. And today we are discovering how implantable neurotechnologies can facilitate the brain's performance of these functions. What makes the new process so innovative is the way it reads the neural processes of the brain. It can see our minds form and retrieve memories, and is even able to predict when our powers of recall are about to let us down. Oh, that pesky brain. We'll fix that. Don't worry about it. Sanchez says his team is looking at when the optimum moment for electrical stimuli really is, when memories are formed, when memories are recalled, or where in between. And, don't forget, too, that DARPA, the National Institute of Health, all the big tech companies, the presidents announced his support for it. They're all behind this global brain project of mapping every area of the brain, trying to figure out where all the neurons go. I mean, there's trillions of neurons, and they're trying to map this all out so they can crack all the mysteries. It's not going to be too long before they'll have a device that they'll be able to just scan your head and see what you're thinking or suck your thoughts out. I thought, it's hard because I do the show first thing in the morning, and when the show's over, I don't, it comes out. Stuff just comes through. And when then I do the notes on the show, I'm like, oh, yeah, we talked about that. But, I know that we've talked about a few different times now of them having the ability to not only be able to future read your thoughts, but to be able to remove, to add thoughts. And we saw here that this was part of that PTSD research. And they could do a few different ways. They could do it with an implant. They could do it with a flash of light, we found out as well. I think there was one more way, but I don't know. It's dark and rainy here, and I'm sleepy. All right, let's read a little bit more. And people always step up to be the first in these trials. That's what I can't even believe. Okay, so the team placed small electrode arrays in the areas of the brain known to be responsible for the formation of declarative memory, which is used for short and simple memories like lists, which is my favorite thing. I love lists. Spatial memory and navigation, and the volunteers enlisted in the study were not suffering from any memory problems in particular, but had been scheduled to undergo brain surgery for other neurological issues. When tested, their powers of recall were improved. Full details of the study, and check this out, full details of the study are being withheld, pending a peer review and publication in a scientific journal. But some results have already been presented at a technology forum hosted by DARPA itself. And yeah, that was last week or the week before. As Troy Oakes from the Vision Time reports, quote, "We still have a lot to learn about how the human brain encodes declarative memory, but these early experiments are clarifying issues such as these and suggest that there's a great potential to help people with certain kinds of memory deficits," Sanchez told him. Now, if we remember discussing, and I think the show that aired yesterday afternoon even talked about this whole thing that we were discussing a while back, and that was that augmented cognition. We saw TED Tech Talk once that SLC had dropped me. We listened to it, and they were talking about the future of brain implants to bring the internet right to your head. How wonderful it's going to be. Eventually, they're going to be putting those in at birth, and it can learn with you. It'll be your best friend, they said. It'll know everything about you from the day you were born and be able to be your real-time in-head assistant to help you organize and remember things. We're getting there. This is the next step to this. I mean, I can't even believe that people stepped up. Even though you're going in for neurosurgery, while we're in there, let us put in a brain implant. That's what it sounds like they volunteered for. Says DARPA scientists are also looking at ways the brain can be stimulated to aid learning as well as to improve memory recall. Yeah, to aid learning. So when your child is the one kid who doesn't have the brain implant, little Johnny's going to get left behind. You know, and they're going to be doing this stuff in the very beginning. I mean, we looked at something last week where they were questioning. In the UK, they made a request to be able to create the first genetically modified human, which we know that they've already been doing behind the scenes for a long time. And we talked about that. I had even left I found that link that I had talked about last week back 2-3 years ago in England. They found a whole lab full of these animal-human hybrids in petri dishes. It was pretty crazy. But, you know, they've been creating human and animal chimeras for a long time. They've been working with different body parts and implants and mind being able to control prosthetic limbs with your brain or keyboard and mice just by thinking about it. I mean, they're pretty far down the road now. It's not going to be too much longer. And the way they're spinning this as being like the new way to fix you, the healthcare, the precision medicine, right? It is all part of this bioeconomy that apparently the whole world has jumped on board with. So it's going to make us smarter and healthier and homogenized, sterilized 21st century Agenda 21. I see it. I see it coming. And, you know, when we find out then that they have an app that can diagnose schizophrenia just by your voice print, but don't worry because we have this newfangled treatment where we can have you sniff medications up your nose intranasally because it easily crosses the blood-brain barrier to fix mental problems. Yeah, you start to see the writing on the wall. All right. Anyway, DARPA scientists are also looking at ways the brain can be stimulated to aid learning as well as to improve memory recall. We already know that, quote, replaying a particular skill in our mind's eye can help us to learn it. And later this year, the agency is going to begin trying to map out these replaying processes as they happen in the brain. Now, hopefully they don't try to start selling this technology to parents with children who coincidentally have ADD that was given to them through the vaccines or through the television, through the video games and the handheld devices that have sent, I mean, even the adults, even people who've been doing this for a long time, I will tell you, I suffer from adult ADD because we have information that comes from so many different directions. It's a coping mechanism. It's the only way you can deal with the deluge of information that you receive on a daily basis. And not just messages to you, but news. News is just never stopping, and it comes from every angle. And so our brains have had to adapt to that. But, you know, now let's fast forward a generation or two and start looking at how it's affected these kids. And we even know that the adult human attention span has gone from, I know back in the 90s when I took concepts of adult learning and I was doing all that technical training, it was like 7 or 15 minutes, and it happened to coincide with the time between commercials on TV. But we discovered now recently they have clocked it at a whopping 7 seconds, I believe, which is less than a goldfish for the human adult attention span. And I couldn't imagine that children's attention spans, which tend to be lower to begin with, could be any better than that. I mean, I've seen marked decline in my child's attention span if there is any television at all. I mean, it's not even the science programs, though it doesn't affect her behavior, it does affect her attention span. But I mean, any type of computer application, forget it. There definitely is a response to that. But I could see them using something like this to improve your memory and, be able to manipulate your brain chemicals or whatever, that, they're just going to decide that the kids are going to get an implant instead of taking pharmaceuticals that, could potentially be dangerous. This will be way safer. Don't worry about it, parents. Step right up, and it's painless. Painless. We don't use needles anymore. We use these micro nano needles. Right? We read about those last week. All right. Anyway. Here's a story that was dropped to me this morning by JJ. Thank you, JJ. Feds developed an app that predicts the psychological status of Americans. We knew this was coming. We're all going to be branded mentally ill. That's what I'm afraid of. You don't step in line with the status quo and quote and toe the company line, you will be deemed not a domestic terrorist, because that's just such an ugly term. You'll be deemed a deviant. And we've diagnosed you through your social media use, because we know that there are all kinds of psychological experiments that are running real time throughout social media. But we've diagnosed you through your Facebook account as being mentally ill. And now the white coats have shown up with some treatment. All right, $8.9 million in a National Institute of Health study has led to a mobile system for, quote, real-time behavioral monitoring. Wow. On your cell phone. Researchers at the National Institute of Health, and they're also the same ones involved in the Brain Project as well as the 23andMe. They gave that huge grant to them about trying to get the all the genomics databases that 23andMe are storing as to use as part of their research in the development of new drugs and things. I mean, this is one big dirty orgy altogether. So the National Institute of Health now has developed a real-time behavioral monitoring application. Researchers at the National Institute of Health have developed a system that can predict the quote-unquote psychological status of users with smartphones and hope to have private companies bring the invention to market. The technology has appeared on a list of the National Institute of Health inventions published by the Federal Register that are now available to be licensed by private companies. Yes, taxpayer dollars that now are available for someone to make a profit on. The government allows companies to license inventions resulting from federal research in order to expedite their arrival to the marketplace. The system uses smartphones to ask people how they are doing mentally during the day. So that's why I'm saying I could see this in social media. You could have something come through your feed with some quirky questions that, are kind of like Rorschach tests for the brain, put in words instead of pretty pictures. How are you feeling? Give us a rating with a bunch of emojis. I could see something like real dumb and user friendly, but how scary is that to be able to diagnose through your cell phone whether or not you're having mental issues? System uses smartphones to ask people how they're doing mentally during the day, and based on the results, can, and look at this, quote, deliver an automated intervention, unquote, if necessary. Send in the drones. The NIH inventors have developed a mobile health technology to monitor and predict, there we go, Minority Report, a user's psychological status and to deliver an automated intervention when needed, according to the notice published on Wednesday. The technology uses smartphones to monitor the user's location. Oh no! It might even be sending the micro drones. I mean, if they got your GPS location and they've deemed you to be mentally unstable through using your cell phone, look out, because here comes the delivered automated intervention. Oh my God. Okay, the technology uses smartphones to monitor the user's location and asks questions about psychological status throughout the day. Continuously collected ambulatory psychological data are fused with data on location and responses to questions, says the NIH, National Institute of Health. The mobile data are then combined with geospatial risk maps to quantify exposure to risk and to predict future psychological state. It's all about the algorithm, remember. The future predictions are then used to warn the user when he or she is at especially high risk of experiencing a negative event that might lead to an unwanted outcome. Oh, love the way they word that. You know, one of the things I'm thinking about while I'm reading this is something we read about, had to be 6-8 months ago. They are working on an application and a device utilizing facial recognition software in the dashboard of the cars to be able to recognize when you are experiencing road rage. And that's very easy to do with 230-point facial recognition. They can start seeing all the signs. But they also were discussing, so with these new self-driving cars, they were talking about putting that into the dash as well as into the steering wheel to be able to monitor your heart rate and your blood pressure to tell whether or not you're getting stressed. And if you're getting stressed, it probably would give you a warning. And if you did not heed the warning, the car would take over for your own safety. Again, all these newfangled technologies are all about keeping us safe. And we know how well the federal government does at that. The National Institute of Health said that the technology has potential commercial applications for real-time behavior monitoring and therapeutic delivery of an intervention via a mobile device. Research developed the system from a project that tracked the moods and cravings of drug users in Baltimore. Oh, that's a good place. The $8.9 million federal study sought to develop ding-ding algorithms that could, quote, automatically detect behavioral events, in this case, such as episodes of drug use or stress, without requiring self-report. The NIH says the app is currently being used for drug addiction intervention, but that the inventors are also seeking to test the technology with other health applications. Request for comments from the NIH was not returned at press time. So they are able to detect schizophrenia through your voice stress patterns, psychological status now through a mobile app. They can treat mental illness with a squirt up the nose. I just can't even wait to see what comes next. But oh, wait, there's more. Dead woman sliced 5,000 times creates virtual human for science experiments. I don't know if you guys remember Adam. Adam was back in the days of CD-ROM, because I remember you could get Adam on CD-ROMs. That was a long time ago, probably 20 plus years ago. But Adam was a death row convict, and after he was executed, they froze him in liquid nitrogen, and then they This is just so horrible. So I hope no one's eating breakfast. They sliced him in these micro thin slices from top down that they could then put on a slide. And I mean super thin slices. And there were thousands, if not millions of them. And then they took high resolution photographs of each of those thin slices of slide and put it into a virtual human, computer program. So when you went in there, and I had a chance to play with the Atom software at one point, I don't remember if somebody actually had it or if it was online somewhere, but I know in my tech travels, when I was in that industry, I got to play with the Atom software a little bit, and it was creepier than hell, I'm telling you. But literally, you were able to traverse the insides of a human at a micro scale because of the slices being so thin and see how everything connected together. Well, apparently this is part of or a continuation of this project. A man and a woman who donated their bodies to science decades ago could never have imagined what their physical generosity has entailed. The above image, and then as a picture at the very top of this article, is one of thousands from the Visible Human Project, and we might have to click on that and look at that tomorrow. That, again, is out of the National Institute of Health. The Visible Human Project, a long-running scientific endeavor to create a comprehensive collection of cross-sectional imagery from the human body. The project began back in the 1980s, there you go, and saw attention a decade later when its first photographs were released to the public, a grisly scientific stockpile of thousands of cross-sections of two corpses. So, well, I know Adam was a convict that was put to death, so I'm not sure what project this is. Who were they? This is a different project, but along the same lines. Who were they? Little is known about the woman other than she died of heart disease at age 59 and lived in Maryland in the U.S. The man had a more checkered history. Oh, this is him. Joseph Paul Jernigan was a convicted murderer who was sentenced to death by lethal injection at age 39 in Texas in 1993. There you go. That is Adam. Both cadavers were acquired by the Visible Human Project and were imaged using both MRI and CT scan, and then they were then frozen and sliced up so their cross sections could be photographed in painstaking detail. Oh, I probably shouldn't have told the story before I read this. I knew that story already because I had followed it when it was happening, but yeah, they're going to recount it. And I mean, it was so grisly. I remember thinking about the thought of just slicing people up for microscopic slides. I mean, how horrifying is that? Even if you did donate your body to science, the man was cut at cross-sectional thicknesses of 1 millimeter, and the woman's slices were even thinner, with each slice being just a third of a millimeter thick. Now, a new team of researchers led by Sergei Makarov of the Worcester Polytechnic Institute in the U.S., and I'm assuming that's Worcester, Mass., has compiled new high-resolution imagery of the woman's body to create a virtual human for study and experimental purposes. You know how weird, though, they didn't mention the Atom software. I mean, that was out back 20 years ago. Their research presented at the annual conference of the IEEE Engineers in Medicine and Biology Society in Italy last month is the most detailed reconstruction of the human body ever, comprising a virtual phantom body assembled from more than 5,000 digital images and overseen by a team of medical specialists. You know, imagine now, because really this is going to open up so many windows while we're looking at holograms and avatars and the 2045 project being able to suck ourselves into the machine. Having a very detailed rendering of you after death would be quite advantageous. It says they have at least 10 times as much information as you can get from an MRI scan. says Fernando Bellio, a reader, surgical graphs, and computing at the Imperial College of London. He told Jessica Hamslew at New Scientist, it means that the team will have a much more information about organs and their structuring. The virtual female will help enable the Visible Human Project's original goal, a body proxy for purposes of medical education, but it'll also let researchers study other things, such as running virtual experiments that are too dangerous to conduct in the real world with living human subjects. Wow, that's like the first time out of probably the last 10,000 stories we've heard of any researchers being concerned about doing anything bad to the real world or living human subjects. In addition to the safety factor, the existence of a virtual human could lead to massive benefits when it comes to cost and practicality issues. The Phantom, so they're calling this a Phantom. The Phantom gives us a great opportunity to study human tissues without having to do human studies, which are lengthy and expensive, says Ara Nazarian, an orthopedic surgeon at Harvard Medical School. Creating the Phantom took a lot of work, but now anyone, just anyone, we talked on Monday about Johnny being able to do DNA slicing and dicing in his garage and create nuclear weapons with high-speed lasers in the future. Well, in the future, Johnny will also be able to run experiments on the human body in his garage on his laptop as well. Oh, how awesome is that? You know, when we take a look at this new HoloLens it's called, using augmented reality, this is exactly what they've been talking about. It's a whole new way of learning human anatomy. Microsoft's ambitious HoloLens project has created a huge amount of interest for late and for good reason. And who does not love the idea of viewing and interacting with 3D holograms brought to life right in front of your eyes? The applications for entertaining and gaming are off the charts, but the implications for augmented reality in education and science are also undoubtedly massive. And now Microsoft has teamed up with Case Western University in the U.S. to show what this might look like in an actual human anatomy class. The human anatomy has been taught via two-dimensional representations of body parts for centuries. And even though in more recent times computer software has introduced various kinds of pseudo 3D anatomical models on 2D displays, none of these can rival the interactive holograms that the HoloLens is capable of projecting. So here, let me see if I can connect. There is a video. I don't remember. I watched this the other day, and it was pretty damn trippy, but I don't remember if there were any audio. So let's see.
We've been teaching human anatomy the same way for 100 years. Students get a cadaver, then they look at medical illustrations, and it's completely two-dimensional, and the human body isn't.
Microsoft HoloLens is a holographic computer that you wear. It enables you to bring your digital world into your real world.
At Case Western Reserve University, we are focused on solving problems and creating new knowledge.
My job is to teach, and I really think this could impact almost everything that we teach people. With HoloLens, you can see the muscles on top of the skeleton all at the same time. You can bring them in and out and exactly understand where things sit.
You can take any anatomical part and show any of it. You can move it around. You can make it kind of translucent so you can see through the outside, and that really helped me understand how cardiac anatomy worked. I actually had a moment where I found the aortic valve, and it was the first time that I'd actually seen the aortic valve in relation to all the other anatomical structures. It was a way of seeing it that you couldn't do with an actual heart.
I think this will improve students' confidence in learning anatomy dramatically.
by creating simulations with the HoloLens that lets them have an experience where they can fail. That would be the best way to learn because we don't allow people to fail too much in real life medicine.
And they're even using this technology. They're showing the Cleveland Clinic, Case Western University. I mean, virtual reality is pretty damn cool, but when we see the future implications, which is augmented reality, brain implants, don't think that DARPA brain implant is going to be used just for treating PTSD or people with traumatic issues. Okay, it's going to be used for all kinds of things, not only bagging, tagging, and tracking, but, I mean, we already saw some presentations where they were showing how you'd be able to see right in front of your very eyes your appointment calendar, let's say, with the blink of an eye, the appointment calendar comes up and it could literally talk inside your head. I mean, this is the beginning of this insane future. And, you know, once we all get sucked into the machine and want to be able to interact all the time with these applications that are improving us as humans, you know, it's not going to be too far of a stretch to say, hey, Johnny, you know what? You're going to be able to do all this extra work and see all these 3D things. All you need to do is get this little teeny tiny nano chip put into the base of your head.
With HoloLens, you could imagine having a class standing around a model, almost like a tour group in a museum, where they're all interacting completely naturally. I spend a huge amount of time to make sure they become the best professionals because it's all of our jobs to make the world a better place.
Working with Case Western Reserve University to create this paradigm shift so that we can leap together with students into the future of education. We believe that HoloLens is going to enable us to do that.
We talked about being able to use it to teach art history. We have an anthropology department, too, that I think will enjoy this technology.
Anytime you change the way that you see things, it changes the way that you understand them. As soon as you can change somebody's understanding, then they can change the way they see the world.
And you know what's so amazing about this? I mean, if you really go back to, I'll use history as an example. When I was growing up, I hated history. It was so dry, so boring. There were no pictures in the book. There was nothing interesting to me about history. Now, I kick myself because I am doing double, triple, quadruple time trying to catch up and learn all the things that I didn't find interesting back in those days. But, you know, here from when I learn history to the way that they tend to teach history now, you know, they have multimedia. They have video. Back in the day, they had CD-ROM back a generation ago where all of a sudden it brought all this history to life, and it was an amazing way to learn. It sparked a lot of interest that wasn't there before, so I can see how having 3D virtual reality augmented cognition could be a great way to teach, and not just medical students, but across the board. But on the other hand, everything that we've talked about in the past in regards to being sucked into the machine and the dopamine carrot and causing your brain to not remember things anymore because you're depending too much on the internet or on this great store of information, this is not a good thing. This is another step forward to transhumanism is exactly what it is. Once this becomes an indispensable part of technology, you know, things get smaller and smaller. So now they're big, clunky, hollow lenses. Tomorrow they're going to be little eye implants or contact lenses. And the next step is going to be the little chip in the back of the head. All right, we're running out of time here quick. So I dropped that story in the chat. I'll embed that in the notes on the show. But I want to jump to a couple more things that I ran across a few days ago. Here is how digestible smart pills could soon replace electronic implants. So we're just skipping over electronic implants and doing the smart pill swallowing like that Regina Duggan talked about from DARPA, who now works for Google, having her magical superpowers by swallowing her smart pills. Yes, electronic implants are used inside the body for everything from keeping a person's heart beating regularly to the slow and measured release of a drug. And now scientists are working on alternatives to these implants that are far less invasive. i.e. non-toxic, easily digestible smart pills. Yeah, we knew this was coming too. One of the main challenges in developing a smart pill is in figuring out how to provide enough power in the absence of an electronic battery. But researchers have found that the naturally occurring melanin pigment in our hair and eyes could be used as electrode materials that keep these ingested pills running. Now, that is disturbing. I know that we had watched an interview, and I think it was the one between Ray Kurzweil and Eric Drexler when he was discussing the history of nanotechnology. And one of the things that Drexler had said that you never do in nanotechnology, but I mean, hey, technology is technology. The one thing you never do is make the powering of any of these self-sustaining devices part of the human body. You don't utilize raw materials in the human body for your energy source in case the technology ever goes awry. So the fact that they're going to be using our melanin pigments in our hair and our eyes as electrode materials, that's frightening to me. It's going to consume you to power itself. Quote, we're interested in converting the world of implantable medical devices into ingestible medical devices, says one of the researchers behind the smart pill by polymer research, Chris Bettinger from Carnegie Mellon University. So we are talking all the sophisticated electronics that are used in things like pacemakers and drug delivery systems and converting them into ingestible formats. We want to create a smart device that doesn't just release drugs arbitrarily into your bloodstream, but that releases specific dosages at specific times as and when your body needs it. Yeah. So like if your cell phone determines that you're mentally ill and you're due for some intervention, here, take this smart pill and we'll take care of you. This will fix you right up. The opportunity to release drugs on a schedule is one potential advantage of the smart pill. And unlike electronic implants, they don't require invasive surgery. You just swallow it. Just like the edible GMO vaccines. You just take it. Take it. And you know what? Maybe we won't even tell you that we put the smart pill technology in something as things get smaller and faster. You'll never know. And there's a much lower chance of the body rejecting them. Implants also carry the risk of bacterial infection and persistent inflammation. And what's more, the total cost of a smart pill is likely to be much lower in the long run. We are interested in answering this question. Would an ingestible medical device need to have, what would an ingestible medical device need to have in terms of a material profile, and what would the power supply be? If we were designing batteries, what would they be made of? And you know what's interesting? The fact that they're talking about consuming parts of the human body to power these things. You know, there was a story, trying to see, and it's not here now. I had it for the longest time on the Before the First Cup Facebook page, and I intentionally posted it off to the side so I could find it easily. Oh, here it is. It was out of Science Alert, and it was utilizing the electricity that your muscles create just from moving, right? Up, down, up, down, up, down. They were going to use that to power little patches, electronic patches that would do different things. So I don't know why now they're eating your melanin. That's disturbing. It says smart pill testing has been going on since the 1970s, but scientists have struggled to find materials and electronics that don't harm the body or get stuck anywhere they shouldn't. Biodegradable materials are a promising option, and Bettinger says that a polymer network called an elastomer, which is both semi-fluid and stretchable, could be the answer. It would be able to bend, stretch, and degrade without getting stuck, and the pill would just dissolve naturally once its job was done. And as electronics grow ever smaller in size and natural in composition. The idea of smart pills is moving closer to reality, yet there is still plenty of work to do. There are many rapid advances in materials, inventions, and discoveries that can be brought to bear on medical problems. And if we can engineer devices that get the most mileage out of existing drugs, then it is a very attractive value proposition. I believe that these devices can be tested in patients within the next 5 to 10 years. And I'll guarantee you they're probably already doing things in the lab. I know way back when for doing upper GIs, one of my friends had this procedure done where instead of using a scope, they don't do that anymore. They have these little smart pills that are fitted with Wi-Fi, and you swallow this little pill. It's got a little HD camera in it, and you put a device, you clip it onto your belt of your pants, and in this device, it's got a flash memory card and a Wi-Fi receiver, and basically this camera pill goes down your throat and takes, I don't know what the actual number of pictures, but it's hundreds, if not thousands of pictures as it's going all the way down through your digestive system and sends them all to this little device that's clipped on your hip. And when it's all done and it's passed through, then you just give the flash card and the device to your doctor, and they can retrieve all those photographs. I mean, they've been doing that. That was quite a number of years ago. She had that procedure done. So I can't imagine that the smart pill technology is that far out there, especially if they've been experimenting with it since the 1970s. All right, so where are we going to wrap this sucker up? This one was from yesterday. Wearable electronic health patches may now be cheaper and easier to make. A team of researchers in the Cockrell School of Engineering at the University of Texas at Austin has invented a method for producing inexpensive and high-performance wearable patches that can continuously monitor the body's vital signs for human health and performance tracking, potentially outperforming traditional monitoring such as cardiac event monitors. The researchers published a paper on their patent-pending process in Advanced Materials on September 23rd, and led by assistant professor Nashu Liu, the team's manufacturing method aims to construct disposable, tattoo-like health monitoring patches for mass production of epidermal electronics, a popular technology that Liu helped develop in 2011. The team's breakthrough is a repeatable cut-and-paste method that cuts manufacturing time from several days down to only 20 minutes. The researchers believe that their new method is compatible with roll-to-roll manufacturing, an existing method for creating devices in bulk using rolls of flexible plastic and a processing machine. Reliable, ultra-thin, wearable electronic devices that stick to the skin like a temporary tattoo are a relatively new innovation, and these devices have the ability to pick up and transmit the body's vital signals, tracking heart rate, hydration level, muscle movement, temperature, and brain activity. Don't forget about that one. Although this is a promising invention, a lengthy, tedious, and costly production process has now hampered these wearables' potential. One of the most attractive aspects of the epidermal electronics is their ability to be disposable. If you can make them inexpensively, let's say for $1, the more people will be able to use them more frequently, and this will open the door for a number of mobile medical applications and beyond. And yes, that's what I was reading. So just like I was talking about that camera pill where you wore the little device on your hip, any of these remote body monitoring tools that they are working on aren't going to connect to an external little freestanding box. They're all going to connect to your cell phone now. We're going to have an app for that. Remember, we read about the new medical app store and all these genetic apps and things that they're encouraging people to build. Well, this is going to be across the board for precision medicine. It's all going to be tied to your cell phone, and then be able to send your data and statistics to any medical health professional that would like to see them. Send them to your doctor's office live. All right. The UT Austin method is the first dry and portable process for producing these electronics, in which, unlike the current method, does not require a clean room, either wafers or other expensive resources and equipment. So in other words, they'll be able to mass produce them in China. Instead, the technique relies on freeform manufacturing, which is similar in scope to 3D printing, but different in that material is removed instead of added. The two-step process starts with inexpensive, prefabricated, industrial quality metal deposited on a polymer sheet. And first, an electronic mechanical cutter is then used to form patterns on the sheets. After removing these excess areas, the electronics are printed onto any polymer adhesives, including temporary tattoo films. The cutter is then programmed so the size of the patch and the pattern can easily be customized. So there you go. The UT Austin wearable patches are so sensitive that Lou and her team can envision humans wearing the patches to more easily maneuver a prosthetic hand or limb using muscle signals. And for now, Lou says, we are trying to add more types of sensors, including blood pressure and oxygen saturation monitors, to the low-cost patch. How awesome is that? All right, well, I think, guys, we got about 50 seconds left, so instead of starting something new, we're going to wrap this sucker up. Make sure you check out the interview. I don't know if you caught it last night, but S.M. Gibson from the Anti-Media Radio had on John McAfee last night as a guest. Yes, the John McAfee. He's announced that he is also running for president. It was a great interview. Thank you for Mr. McAfee for calling into UCY. I was absolutely amazed. That was great. Make sure also on Friday you try and catch LaVon's show and help us beta test the live streaming video simulcast, which will be really great. All right, today is Wednesday, so make sure you stick around. We have Ms. Lonnie Clark up next. We have the boys from New York. Tonight at 8, we have Josh at 6 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Truth or Talk with April and Verstein, and that's the interview with Corbett, which was a good one. And at 11 o'clock, we have Nick and DB from Anti-Media Live tonight. All right, guys, make sure you stick around. Have an awesome Wednesday. Try not to get too soggy, and we'll catch up tomorrow. All right, everybody, take care.